It's a quiet Sunday morning in Dauphin, Manitoba. This city of 10,000 people is just getting going. And across the quiet of a warm summer morning floats a familiar sound. It's been echoing through this town 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for over 100 years. And by mid-September, the harvest in western Manitoba is just wrapping up, and for the railroad, that means just one thing. The trains are moving. All day long, every day. During an average day, thousands of tons of commodities pass through here, and at the center of town sits a last reminder of what was once a vibrant railway hub. It's the Dauphin train station. In 2012, the station celebrated its 100th anniversary, and in the century since it was built, the Dauphin train station has literally watched history unfold. At the end of the 19th century, farming operations were sprouting up across the prairies as new immigrants took advantage of cheap land they could cultivate, and it was the railways that carried their goods to market. And with the mighty CPR struggling to keep up with demand, the Manitoba government called on, amongst others, an experienced railroader named William Mackenzie. He was a stern, hard-driving individual who knew how to make a deal. But it wouldn't be so easy getting the funds to build, since government grants only paid out after a new line was built. So to convince the bank to finance a new railway, Mackenzie was forced to join up with an old partner. His name was Donald Mann. Together, Mackenzie and Mann would build a coast-to-coast railway that would rival the CPR main line. But it all started in the Parkland region of Manitoba, where under the name of Lake Manitoba and Canal Company, the two men purchased a strip of track between Dauphin and Gladstone. Eventually, they would call it the Canadian Northern Railway.
Those engines that went north, there were 13 ton of coal on them, and you had to shovel that in. But the winter time was worse because it would snow, and then it would melt, and if you didn't use too much coal, it'd melt and run down and freeze the coal. Then you couldn't get that coal out, you got to chisel the damn thing to get it out.
Canadian Northern had a main line, went up through Hudson Bay, and then went straight west to North Battleford, and then straight on west to Edmonton, the Canadian Northern.
We had a lot of good engineers in Dauphin. I mean real good engineers. We had very good engineers, very good firemen, dependable, very good trainmen. And Billy Warner was one of the good trainmen. He was excellent to work with. I worked with him a lot. And you could depend on him. You knew he was back there listening, watching, and ready to answer the radio. Yeah, all the time. He was good.
When we were going on the branch line, peddling these empties, there was a herd of cattle on the track, and the engineman stopped. So I go with him, and there's about 30 head of cattle there. We chased them off the track, and then away we went. And I said to the fireman, I said, that's something new. I said, I grew up along the railroad track, and sometimes it seemed to me that the engineman would rather run over the cows than chase them off the track. And the fireman started to laugh. He said, yeah, you're right. Those cows were his brothers. It's a hoop, a bamboo hoop, with a little wire thing. And they put the orders where that little wire thing is, And then, while the engineman or the fireman, they would grab it off the engine, with a long one, yeah. Then you took that order out, and if you liked the agent, you threw the hoop back quick, because he had to go. But if he was a snorty agent, you hung on to it for a little while, and then he threw it back. So he had to walk away down, and then he'd go like this. So there was lots of that going on.
Several train stations were built up and down the line in those early years, with each one signifying the importance of the town's location on the line. And Dauphin was important.
The railroad was freighting everything in those days. They were freighting pulpwood out of the Duck Mountains and up from the Porcupine Mountains and from the north, from the Paw area. That was a big part of the freight, and Hudson Bay area trains, freight trains were big in that at that time. So that was one aspect, and grain has always been a huge commodity.
Because of its central location, Dauphin was slated to service trains running into northern Manitoba and west into Saskatchewan. Ralph Benjamin Pratt was born and educated in London, England, but he moved to Manitoba and began working as an architect. He designed the Prince Edward Hotel in Brandon and the Sherbrooke Pool in Winnipeg, but he cut his railway teeth working as an architect and engineering draftsman for the CPR. And since Dauphin was expected to become an important anchor on the railway, Pratt had to build a station that could accommodate administrative offices and a fully functioning passenger terminal. And in 1912, the station was open for business. In those early days, the station quickly became a meeting place, with townspeople stopping by the station just to watch the trains.
There was kids always come out to the train and watch and wave. And Sturgis, when we're going through, he'd go and buy a bunch of candy and throw it out to the kids as we went by. Yeah, he'd slow the engine down. He was an engineer. I fired for him. He'd slow it down, throw them candies.
But while the popularity of train travel seemed strong, there was something happening. With high debt loads and low competitive prices, the railways were beginning to collapse. Add to that the fact that roads were expanding into towns and villages as cars began to dominate personal travel. The Canadian Northern Railway was heavily indebted to banks and governments, and its profitable branch lines in the prairie provinces would not generate enough revenue to cover construction costs in other areas. Unable to repay construction costs, the company requested financial aid, In exchange for the funds, the federal government gained majority control of shares, and Canadian Northern Railway was nationalized on September 6, 1918. Not long after that, it was gone. The Canadian Northern Railway ended corporate existence on January the 20th, 1923. It was the end of an era, but also the start of a new one.
The train station, when I arrived here in '69, was full. It was there was engineering was on the west end. They had a waiting room on the east end, and the operators were in there selling tickets and taking train orders to give to the crews. And upstairs, right at the top level, that was the dispatchers. They controlled the train traffic from there. And there was quite a few people working up in there. They had even like a chief dispatcher along with dispatchers that dispatched the trains over all these different areas, like towards Swan River, towards Kamsack, towards Fork River and Winnipegosis. There was trains still going every direction. There was the general office, and there was the area manager's office. That was on the second floor, and the train master's office. So the building was humming at that time.
We had to have a very understanding wife and kids, you know, because like I know up north, I was gone for 3 days at a time, lots of times on trips. And so basically the wife had to raise the kids and get them to hockey and get them to, you know, and we're quite thankful for that. It's hard on family life. It's very hard, especially when you're younger, you know, and the kids are young. I got on the train here all the time going to work, and all different people from all over. A lot of Americans from England, from France, and they would get off the train with their cameras, and the first thing they would be commenting on the station, the shape it was in, and how nice a building it was, when was it built. They'd start asking questions right away. I wish I'd have known more about it, to be honest with you. That's the first thing that people come off the train and start taking pictures of.
During the summer, we'd load the ice into refrigerator cars or insulated cars, placed on the track next to the station, and ice taken out of there and placed in the bunkers, and that was the cooling system. Conductors are very particular about their caboose and kept them spotless. When I first started, I didn't realize what the goings on were, so I walked in the wrong door with my dirty feet and dirty boots, and I soon got told to get the heck out of there, come in the other door. Steam engines all had to be serviced, and they did that in the CN shop. That's where the town have their shop now. That was the turntable is out in front to line the engine up with track going into the shop. And they were all serviced, boilers cleaned, clinkers taken out of the firebox, and yeah, there's quite a staff of engine personnel that looked after the steam engines. And when the steam engines were replaced by the diesels, all that staff was terminated.
With CN and CP now dominating rail freight and passenger service, Dauphin still had a vital role to play until the modernization of their computer system once again changed the nature of the railway.
The building began to empty in about 1977 when they started moving out, when they changed from the area concept to a regional concept. And then they took out the engineering, they took out the controller's office. As it began to have less people, it was still maintained, but once the building was vacated, that's probably into the 80s already. And then it was stood empty for about a dozen years, maybe more. And that's when it fell kind of into bad repair. It needed a lot of work.
Really, there was a wonderful group of people, the Dauphin Rail Heritage Society. And they actually started working on it before City Council did. The cost of getting it done right was about $1.2 million. It's a lot of money to do the 7,500 feet plus platform plus, the landscaping plus redo a lot of the basement because it had been really untouched for half a century. And, at $150 a foot, that comes to over $1 million. And so it came in at about 1.15 million. And so trying to find a way to do that, it was difficult. But the whole idea was to find all of the different sources of funding that you could find in order to put it together and make the deal work. Our council was really proud of the fact that we were able to do that.
This station, historically, economically, socially, represented so much for the community of Dauphin in our area. Our provincial government thought that we needed to preserve it. What we had going for us was a very local, very committed group of people, including the municipal leadership here in the city of Dauphin. A lot of people who had connections with the railway who didn't want to see this station just have the wrecking ball go through it. The Canadian National Railway at the time was offloading many of these stations. The number of passengers, the amount of freight compared to decades ago is minuscule. So the railway was looking to do something with it. Fortunately, so were we here in Dauphin.
The Dauphin train station was saved by a small group of enterprising residents. Today, the station's historical importance is widely acknowledged with images all over town. The bulk of the interior is now offices, but the major attraction is a railway museum that's popular with local residents. It's also the first museum that tourists encounter as they head north to watch the polar bears on the Via Rail Winnipeg to Churchill line. The building is also an inspiration to other jurisdictions who look to Dauphin as a model for how to save their own stations.
People have become aware of what happened in Dauphin, and as a result, in the years that I've been here, we've entertained, I think, about 4 different groups who've come to see how it happened and how it can be made to happen. And those groups were from Portage. They now have saved the CPR station there, and Minnedosa, similarly, they have the CPR station there. Rivers is a group from there came up, and I don't know if they were inspired by what they saw, but certainly they've gone on to make an arrangement to save the station in Rivers.
It's right in the center of our community, and it's hooked up to a walking path through Vermilion Park. It's across the street from our historic Arts Center, which was our fire hall years ago. It is so strategically placed in the middle of town, just across the street from our recreation facilities. I've always viewed it as the heartbeat of Dauphin, right in the middle, very active and connected to other very active facilities here in town.
The Dauphin train station has proven it can survive a century of ups and downs. But the station only exists today because some well-motivated, socially conscious citizens believed in it. As a result, it's poised to witness at least a century more.
This herd of Wapatees been here forever in the hills of forests above Agassiz shore. They know no boundaries, no fences to follow. They're part of this great land and a part of its lore. Like ghosts in the night, they melt in the darkness, shadows by the harvest moonlight. With bugles and whistles in the frost-filled meadows, rattling their antlers with all of their might. The Ojibwe hunters, the sons and their fathers, have followed the Wapiti through this riding mountain. The spirits of the northern lights watch campfires late at night, stories by the banks of the Saskatchewan. Like ghosts in the night, they melt in the darkness, shadows by the heart